Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Pat Parris from KGUN 9, and this is our town hall. It is involving the vaccine trial of Moderna. Of course, Tucson, well represented in Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine trial. In fact, nearly 1,000 of the 30,000 participants in Moderna's phase 3 trial were right here in Tucson. So congratulations, way to go, Tucson, to help in the fight to get this vaccine and end this pandemic here in the United States. I've been following along with these people as well. I want to introduce first on the top right of the screen, Chief Cheryl Horvath from the Tubac Fire District. The bottom left of your screen is Yvonne De Los Reyes, who is with the Quality of Life and Medical Research Center here in Tucson. She is the clinical researcher. And then, of course, Dr. Jack Mcgettig on the bottom right, who is the owner and the head of Quality of Life Medical Research Center in Tucson that hosted the phase 3 trial for Moderna. Let's start out by talking, before we get their thoughts on this very important day, as Moderna is about to get approval from the independent board. Let's look back at one of the stories I did about midway through this journey, my journey as well as being a participant in the Moderna phase 3 clinical trial. This is a story that ran right after I got the second of the 2 doses during this clinical trial. Take a look.
Exactly 28 days ago, I received the first injection. Today, I was given the second.
There it is.
You are all done.
I'm one of hundreds enrolled in the Tucson portion of the COVID-19 vaccine trial at Quality of Life Medical and Research Center. Moderna will eventually have 30,000 enrolled nationwide to prove safety and efficacy of the vaccine. Infectious disease experts say this is the best way to stop the spread of the coronavirus because early trial participants showed higher levels of antibodies against the virus than even people who recovered from COVID-19.
I think that a vaccine may be able to give us better immunity than natural infection in many cases. So increasingly, I think the vaccine is the only hope for really achieving herd immunity.
Herd immunity is when a high percentage of the community is immune to the disease through vaccination or prior illness.
Depending on which expert you want to listen to, but certainly well over 50%. I think I've heard 60, 70, 80%. The higher the number of people that are protected from this, the less likely that those who don't get vaccines or maybe who are in a situation where it'd be difficult for them to get one, that protects them.
Quality of Life has received a big boost from the federal government's Operation Warp Speed in the form of a recovery trailer. They can see more participants, moving people like me into the trailer after receiving an injection. I have to answer several medical questions each day for a week using an app after each of the 2 injections. While Quality of Life is busy right now with Moderna's vaccine trial, they're already looking ahead to running more COVID-19 vaccine trials this fall.
Anybody who perhaps can't quite get into this one because they just close it early, hopefully they'll stay on the list and perhaps help us with the next one.
And that was a story that ran in early September after the second injection. Let's welcome in Dr. Jack Mcgettig. And first, I'll get your thoughts. An historic day today with the independent board likely to approve Moderna. Think about this journey for your clinic and your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions today.
Well, I'm hopeful, obviously, that they're going to get the emergency use authorization. Got my fingers crossed. I don't have any thoughts why they shouldn't, but, don't want to count my chickens either. So.
I'll ask Yvonne De Los Reyes as well. You've been along with both Cheryl and I and everybody else that were involved in the trial. You've been along for the journey. What are your thoughts on a day that looks to be pretty important in the process of getting this emergency authorization from Moderna?
I think for us it's very exciting just because, we have a lot of patients who are worried about COVID. So us as the staff and along with Dr. Mcgettig, we are hopeful that this is it. So. Yeah,
it is. And Cheryl Horvath, the chief of the Tubac Fire District. Cheryl, again, I think you and I have talked about, we're competitive people. We want to be first, and to have Moderna be maybe not first, but close to first with Pfizer, but to have that finish line close, it's exciting.
It is exciting, and to be honest with you, this happened a lot faster than I thought it was going to. So I think it's a great day. I'm hoping in the next couple days we get some great news about the emergency use authorization, and hopefully it'll relieve the anxiety for a lot of folks around the country. And certainly, I'm hoping it helps us down here in Tubac.
Yeah, exactly, and we'll touch on that here in a little bit. As far as where the doses will go for Moderna and how that's going to help more rural communities like Tubac. Dr. Mcgettig, the clinic that you own, you talked to me about the importance of being somebody who finds the cure instead of just sitting around on your hands and watching all this terrible news unfold around us.
Yeah, yes, I mean it's been very exciting to be part of this. Obviously, it's gotten to be bigger than I realized, and right now we're getting a lot of calls from people who are in the study with us, who are actually frontline folks who have an opportunity to get the Pfizer vaccine because it is available. But I think a lot of them are hoping they can, get the Moderna one if they didn't get it. So we're in the process of figuring that all out. We're kind of on pins and needles ourselves, just waiting.
And I'll get one of the questions I got several times during this last couple of weeks. In fact, I've got a couple of emails in the last 2 days. You told me that there's a likelihood that Moderna will unmask, unblind this, and let everybody know very soon, so that we will be offered the vaccine if we got the placebo.
That's correct. We're in the process of waiting again. If this emergency use authorization goes through, that's part of the plan that's been shared with us. It's very hopeful that we can unblind people as quickly as possible. We should have the vaccine available for the placebo group, is what we're told, and then we'll begin to bring in the 900 plus folks that helped us one at a time, and many. When I say one at a time, probably be quite a few per day, but this wasn't something we were quite anticipating would happen quite so quickly. And with the holidays, it's going to put an additional strain on our staff. But I think they're definitely willing to step up and do their part again. They've been tremendous through this, and certainly got my hat off to all of them. They've worked extremely hard.
Yeah, they certainly have. Yvonne, you've been right in the middle of it, and you and your coworkers have during that stretch when you were giving out the 2 vaccines over that few month period. You guys worked pretty much nonstop every day for several months, didn't you?
Yes, we did. Nonstop. 6 months straight feels like.
But obviously you guys must have felt a real self-pride, a lot of excitement, and knowing that you were doing something so important.
That is correct, especially when we heard what the efficacy was at 94.5% for Moderna. We felt that we worked so hard. When we going to see the end of it? And here we are. I mean, it's close.
We're going to, during this town hall, answer any questions folks have. If they want to send some questions to us on Facebook Live, we're on Facebook right now, obviously. And so if you have any questions, we've got many questions that hopefully we can answer for you during this town hall. Right now, I want to take a look at a story that I did involving Chief Horvath a few weeks ago. Once we knew the efficacy was so high, as Yvonne said, 94.5%, and that we knew that Moderna was going to ask for the emergency use authorization. And here's a story I did with Chief Horvath.
I'll be ecstatic, obviously, if we get FDA approval, but again, once it gets put into people's arms, then I'll know that we did our job, and we can move on to some semblance of normalcy.
Chief Horvath and I are both part of Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine trial at Quality of Life and Medical Research Center in Tucson. Of the 30,000 participants nationwide, 1,000 are enrolled in the Tucson trial.
Super proud of Tucson because the response that Moderna got from the number of people in the Tucson area, greater Tucson area, Pima County, Santa Cruz County, who stepped up to volunteer was huge.
Moderna is now asking for emergency approval with expanded data showing it's 94% effective at preventing COVID-19 and 100% effective at preventing severe cases of the disease. Chief Horvath sees firsthand the need for a vaccine for her Tubac firefighters.
Our transports are an hour, so my firefighters are spending an hour in the back of an ambulance with a suspected or a known positive case. And no matter how much PPE they have on, it still creates so much anxiety.
Chief Horvath tells me Tubac Fire has 6 members enrolled in Moderna's Tucson trial. She says they're already planning for the likely approval of the vaccine.
We know it's going to happen. We know there's probably going to be a round of shots in December for our first responders and for our staff here. How are we going to do this? How are we going to track it?
And that was a story I did just a couple of weeks ago with Chief Horvath. Cheryl, let me ask you. We've got a lot of questions about side effects. I know I had a little bit of soreness. In fact, a couple of days it was very sore, but nothing that I would tell people to worry about. Certainly, there are side effects. If you're comfortable talking about it, you talk about how you handled the 2 vaccines.
Well, I'm hopeful that I got the vaccine, to be honest, first of all, let me say that. But I had some arm soreness on the first one, and I think I was a little fatigued, and I would say the same for the second one, but nothing that kept me from doing anything. I was prepared to experience more than that if that was going to occur, but the side effects that I had personally, again, if I did get the vaccine, were nothing that kept me from normal everyday life. I think that's pretty standard across the board with most of our folks here at Tubac, at least the ones who I know are participating in the trial. There might have been, I think there was one individual who, pretty much felt like, I can't leave the house today. I'm just pretty worn out. But that was about the extent of it.
Yeah, and I had similar experiences. And Dr. Mcgettig, I think, to have anything more than a little aches and pains and as Cheryl said, maybe a little fatigue, that's about the extent of most people's reaction to it so far. Am I right?
That's correct. They've been really minimal. Nothing that in most cases would keep somebody from doing their normal activities from what the patients have told us.
And Yvonne, you were kind of front and center with helping Quality of Life not only get nearly 1,000 participants enrolled, but also with such an emphasis on minorities in our community. That was something that Moderna stressed. In fact, that's how Moderna went from probably being a week or 2 ahead of Pfizer to maybe being a week behind Pfizer, was because they were so conscious of bringing in more minority participants into the trial.
That's correct. So they were at the end of, trying to wrap up, but we had all of these, they were lacking the minority group. And so that's where we kind of picked it up and were able to kind of finish off with bringing in a large group of the minority people to participate in the study.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're proud of it. I know you're proud of that fact. They're talking Moderna nationally. They had about 10% African American in the trial. They had over 20% of Latinos, and I know here locally, Dr. Mcgettig, you're talking about quite a bit more than that as far as a percentage of minority participants.
I think our numbers were probably closer to 40% overall minority representation, and certainly we had, I think, most of those were probably Hispanic, Latin descent. So.
Yeah, and it's tell us why it was so important, Dr. Mcgettig, for them to get that information. I know that's a minority groups sometimes are hesitant to get involved in trials like this, or even now that the vaccine looks like it's going to be available, they might be hesitant to take the vaccine.
Well, I think it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. There are people who are anti-vaccine, small percent. And certainly some of the minority groups, I think, over the years have had some bad experiences, but hopefully those years are way behind us. And we certainly are hopefully setting a new high standard of participation. And hopefully that not just in the study, but when it comes to actually getting the vaccine, people will realize that's in most cases going to be the right thing to consider doing.
Cheryl, I know that Tubac Fire, as you mentioned, but you've had several participants in the trial, maybe a half dozen of your fire district involved in the trial. I'm sure they all would probably support the idea of getting this once it becomes available.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up. I think those that are in the trial would definitely agree with that. The Tubac Fire Board yesterday just approved a mandatory vaccination policy for all of our firefighters here at Tubac Fire District. And that comes with some challenges. So I think the more knowledge the more information that Moderna can get out there about the vaccine technology and all that, I think that's really going to help relieve anxiety levels. But we've chosen to take a very proactive stance as a fire district and make sure that all of our folks are protected with the vaccine. And so when it becomes available to us in a couple of weeks, everybody here that works at Tubac Fire District will be required to get the vaccine.
Oh, that's saying a lot. I'm sure, Yvonne, that is something that you would stress to people, the importance of getting this vaccine as well.
Yes, especially the frontline workers. I mean, we're putting our lives at risk every day with, seeing patients who potentially could COVID positive. Same thing with our staff. I think it's important for us to stress the importance of getting the vaccine when it becomes available to us.
Dr. Mcgettig, I don't know if you'd ever think about making it mandatory with your staff, but I would assume that those working in your office, they have a lot of the knowledge, they have a lot of the information from Moderna. You're probably going to have a lot of people in your office wanting this vaccine as well.
Yeah, I think making it mandatory is not something that's going to happen, but I actually don't know of anybody who doesn't want it. So I think we all see the importance of it and see what happens if you don't get it, the risk you're taking, and a day of maybe minor side effects probably being the most likely negative part compared to being in the hospital on a ventilator, or maybe not getting out of the hospital. I mean, to me, those are two very different, contrasting things that we're looking at. And being in the healthcare field, I don't understand those who don't want to lower their risk for those really horrible effects of COVID.
You talked to me from the very beginning of this study, or this trial. Before I even knew I was going to get the injection, you said that you were doing this because of the frontline workers that that because of your background in medicine, that you knew colleagues that needed this vaccine.
Yeah, and fortunately we had a lot of them participating. The sad news is I know every day we're losing some of those folks because we didn't have a vaccine. But I know most of them that I'm aware of, as they're finding out that they maybe got the placebo, they're going to be running in very quickly. Some of them I think are getting it today, tomorrow, over the weekend. And I wish we had the Moderna one available to us right now, but I think perhaps next week or the week after that, it'll also be there for those of us that want to get it.
Yeah, and I should mention that Pima County, there was a memo that just came out a couple of days ago. They talked about receiving here in Pima County 8,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine, but next week, December 21st, they will start administering 17,000 doses here in Pima County alone of the Moderna vaccine once it becomes approved. Likely tomorrow, the FDA will approve it after the board today reviews it and gives their okay. So 17,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine could be available in Pima County as early as early next week. And I know that Chief Horvath, I know that down in Tubac, you're excited because that's the vaccine you'll be getting is Moderna. It's people don't know the science behind it. Pfizer's needs to be kept very cold, about minus 94 degrees, while Moderna's can be kept in a regular refrigerator, or at least kept in a freezer and then moved to a refrigerator. That's why small towns, even your CVS's and your Walgreens locally in the cities, will be getting this, and you'll be able to see Moderna being distributed right there in Tubac.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about that. I think the Moderna vaccine is perfect for a rural county like Santa Cruz County. The health director, and then again on a phone call this morning, his staff confirmed that Santa Cruz County will be getting about 1,000 cases next week sometime. And so the vaccine administration for healthcare providers and first responders, frontline EMTs and paramedics, that's going to start happening here within a couple weeks. So I'm happy about that. I think it is much more flexible for a rural county to deal with the requirements for storage for the Moderna vaccine than it would be for the Pfizer vaccine. So I'm happy to see that we're in line to receive that.
We've got a couple of questions. One goes into the immune suppression meds that somebody might be taking and the vaccine, and I think that's probably something that's going to be answered by Moderna and perhaps even this board today. So a little bit too, maybe a little too deep of a discussion. We'll try to follow up on that a little later on. But another question, and Yvonne, I'll put this to you, about the Native American participants, about our communities here. That were in the trial. It was a small percentage, and I know you wanted to get more, but the good news is the members of the nation tribes will be getting the Moderna vaccine as quickly as they can. They've even gotten some Pfizer vaccine out there. Talk about the Native Americans here in our community.
So for the Moderna study here at our site, we had a very small percentage of Native Americans participate. We just had a really difficult time getting to them and, getting them to actually come in and participate in a trial. Again, I mean, there's various reasons as to why they, opt out of participation. But as you said, Moderna is, giving the reservations, some of the Moderna vaccine along with the Pfizer to get all those people taken care of.
I guess there are probably a lot of medical questions, Dr. Mcgettig, that people have. Certainly people that have underlying health conditions want to know if this vaccine is going to be safe. Maybe that's something we'll learn as the study goes on. What are your thoughts about who is going to receive this vaccine and exactly, your hopes of when?
Well, I'm not totally privy to who's in line after the first line folks and the people in the assisted living or nursing homes. I know certain people were excluded from the studies. I think that partially had to do with they didn't want to cloudy the water too much with people who might have a immune response that might not be what we would want. Whether they're going to do a separate study for that group, I don't know. I imagine it could happen. So a lot of unanswered questions. Probably the more we know, the more questions are going to pop up, is what I keep seeing. So, people who tested positive for COVID throughout the study, but maybe had no symptoms, should they get the vaccine? I'm hearing yes, they should. And people who had COVID, I'm also hearing it'd probably be wise for them to get the vaccine. But I don't know if any of these things are totally firmed up. We have to wait for the people higher up the chain to make those decisions for us.
And that brings me to the next question for you, Dr. Mcgettig. And we Cheryl and I, Yvonne, yourself, we talk about this ongoing trial because this phase 3 trial, while emergency approval is just a day or so away, we're not done with this trial yet. A lot of questions have to be answered about how long the efficacy of these antibodies lasts, right? And that's to be determined.
Yeah, I imagine we're going to see a lot of tweaks to the protocol as we're going to have run blinding. It was supposed to be a 2-year study. I think most of us anticipated if it worked, it wouldn't go that far. And obviously it's not going to make it even past a few months before we unblind. But we do need to continue to follow individuals who've gotten the vaccine, see how long their immunity stays up. There may be a subset or sub-study looking at do people need a booster? Lots of, again, unanswered questions, but over the coming months, I think a lot of these will be brought to the forefront, and we will begin to maybe have sub-studies or whole new studies. A colleague of mine wants to look at whether we should be vaccinating or what happens vaccinating people who maybe are undergoing chemotherapy. So there's just a lot of smaller groups. Certainly the pediatric group has not been looked at to a large extent yet. We're told we're going to be involved in a study coming up very soon looking at the age group 12 to 18. So there's just, in science, as you begin to get information, you begin to ask more questions. More questions bring on more research. It's a very interesting way of how we discover what the answers to questions. So.
Yvonne, as a clinical research coordinator, I know you've done many studies. Perhaps not one as important as this, especially with what's going on with the deaths, with the total number over 300,000 in the U.S. now. Your thoughts about how this trial went, and some of the questions, maybe as Dr. Mcgettig had just said, Yvonne, what questions have come up that you hope get answered in the future?
Well, many questions have come up. One is, who's going to get the vaccine first? Unfortunately, we do not know. We're a site, we collect the data, we put it together, and Moderna will kind of decide what they're going to do with it and how they're going to continue to construct, the next few protocols and what we're going to do for the patients moving forward. Yes, it's a very important trial for us, again, because it's a pandemic that has affected us worldwide, every single person.
Yeah, without a doubt. And Chief Horvath, I'll direct this at you. You've got a rural community there, and you've told me a couple of times now that you've got an elderly population that makes up a large percentage of your community. This has been front and center for you since March, maybe more than the average person, because your department is front and center and running into this disease every day.
Well, I think when you combine a demographic that's primarily 65 and older, at least in the Tubac area specifically, I mean, our fire district spans a huge part of the county, but if you look at just Tubac itself, if you take the 65 and older demographic and you combine it with the fact that we're responding in a rural healthcare system, and so we are looking at extended transport times to take patients up to the Tucson area. When you look at those risk factors long term, what we better do something right now to try to shut this thing down to the extent that we can. And so, like I mentioned earlier, we've been pretty proactive since pretty much the beginning of March, and really taking care of our folks internally, but more importantly, trying to message out to the public how important it is to wear your mask and social distance and not gather in large gatherings. And we can't run the risk that we have an outbreak, if you will. And while the numbers to some people might seem small in a rural setting, they're huge, and it's real easy to overwhelm the system down here. So we had to be very mindful of that demographic when this whole thing started.
Yeah, that's a good point about we are close to the finish line with a couple of vaccines now, but it's not over yet, and you've got to continue to be really strict with your wet mask wearing, with your hand washing, with your social distancing. Dr. Mcgettig, the speed at which this got done, we've all been amazed at how quickly it got done. We've got a couple of people asking questions, and basically it's a lot of science about, okay, how can you get this done in 9 months, but we don't always get the flu vaccine right every year, and that's an interesting observation. I don't know that there's an answer to that, but it does tell you how amazing this Operation Warp Speed has been for both Pfizer and Moderna to get this done in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, the flu vaccine is a whole different animal, so to speak, and the techniques of developing vaccines over the years have improved. I think this mRNA technology is maybe going to have it hadn't been really tested. Now it's being tested, and it's proving to be very efficacious, also much quicker to develop vaccines. So I think we're a little bit of a paradigm shift is happening, and you may see that the flu vaccines going forward are maybe more effective based on some of the new techniques.
And it is interesting that Moderna, the company Moderna, is a company that it really hadn't had anything, approved by the FDA yet. They were a new startup company that is working with this new technology, just like Pfizer. They use this mRNA technology. Real quick, if you could, Dr. Mcgettig, as our as our doctor and our expert. The technology is so new, yet we're seeing great efficacy from these two studies for both Pfizer and Moderna, that it does give you a lot of confidence about what this could be in the future, this mRNA.
I think, it's like anything. When people start thinking a little bit out of the box and coming up with new ways, there's always the critics that say, no, it's not going to work. Well, I think obviously some folks have been proven wrong on that one, and who knows who's going to come up with the next better technique to develop a vaccine. It's the beauty of science, the beauty, I think, of research, and people, those that are willing to kind of look, so to speak, out of the box at what else can we do? How can we do this differently? Is there a better way? And those are the questions you just have to keep asking. And again, it's very exciting to be part of this whole new way of developing a vaccine, having had a small part of helping get it to market. And, I don't think all of us on this talk show right now, I think we all have a piece of, history. We've helped, it's been exciting. It's been fun. I think it's a moment in time that we won't ever forget in our lives.
No, I think you're absolutely right about that. Yvonne, I know you're also involved, as we've been talking about the entire time through this. We need more than one vaccine. There are too many people in the world just to rely on a Pfizer or a Moderna vaccine. Even those two, they're going to need to be more. I did a story with you with your clinic last week about you're not able to say it, but I can say Johnson & Johnson vaccine. You were an emergency site for that. How did that go enrolling people for the other vaccine?
So with that study came a lot of challenges. We did enroll just short of 100 people within, I want to say, 2.5 days. So I think that's going to be our final number for that trial. Again, we were an add-on site, and they were looking for a large group of the minority participation, and I think we were able to achieve that for Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Dr. Mcgettig, I think you'll agree, one vaccine, two vaccine, probably not enough. And it was, I'm sure it was a privilege and, a lot of respect shown to your clinic to have Johnson & Johnson come to you and say, we need you as an emergency clinic to sign up some participants.
Yeah, it's nice to be recognized for the work we've done. I think it speaks highly, again, to Tucson, though, too, and to the staff that I have that we were approached. And fortunately, there are others knocking at the door now. So we still need Tucson to please step forward and help us. One or two vaccines definitely are not going to be enough for the global needs or for the United States needs. And the other vaccines, some of them come with a little bit easier, maybe administration, maybe a little easier way to maneuver them around the country to places like Tubac. It'd be great if it just needs refrigeration versus freezer. And certainly these, the Pfizer one, that's one of its biggest challenges is the temperature where it has to be kept. So again, the more we research these, and maybe there'll be one that's 99.9% effective, that would be great.
And we're all trying to, it's almost become a negative to some people to say herd immunity. But the idea is that you're trying to get enough people either vaccinated or having had the disease. But in this case, I think it has to be vaccinated because the antibodies don't seem to hold up for those that get the disease, to get COVID-19 very long. But that efficacy, Dr. Mcgettig, or that herd immunity number, you hear lots of different numbers, 60, 70, 80%, but this is a vaccine that we need a lot of people to get.
But for sure, we need to get the vaccine. We don't know, I mean, the number that's very elusive is how many people have had the disease and don't know it, the asymptomatic cases, because they are going to obviously help with the herd immunity. I think once you've had it, you've got some immunity from getting it again. We don't know There's some recent talk about some new strains, so this could be an issue that we're dealing with for years to come, but hopefully it becomes much smaller and maybe just like another flu. That would be the ideal thing. Is there's another COVID coming around, but that's okay. We've got some great vaccines. Don't worry about it. Just get your vaccine and go about your business.
Yeah, excellent point. Chief Horvath, I'm gonna go around now and let everybody give their thoughts about why people should be getting the vaccine, and then we'll wrap this up. But I'll ask you first. If people ask you and they find out you were in the trial, what do you tell them about getting the vaccine?
Well, I'd say a couple things. First of all, I don't want to relive 2020 in any way, shape, or form. And I'm not sure who else would raise their hand and say, yeah, I want to relive this year, but I'm not one of them. But, if it's my choice personally is between getting a vaccine shot or sitting on a ventilator, or probably more appropriately, laying on a ventilator in a hospital, I'm going to pick a vaccine shot every day of the week. This last year has shown us just how completely unpredictable the environment is that we live in every day, and that we really don't have as much control of our environments around us as we'd like to have. And so for me, it's just, let's put an end to that anxiety. Let's assure that I have a better year moving forward than we did in this last year.
Yeah, very well put. I've seen a couple of different research studies in the last couple of days where people who had said they would take the vaccine a couple of months ago was around 65%. Now it's up to 75 to 80%. Yvonne, why would you urge people to take this vaccine?
Well, again, as Cheryl said, 2020, it's been tough, not just for us as a clinic or as, frontline workers, but just us as a whole, the entire world. I'd encourage it just because, it's between life or death. We want to be able to move on with our lives at some point, kind of get rid of masks, be able to visit and socialize with other people, and just the protection overall, just, the being able to protect the other person next to you, not necessarily you getting COVID, but just protecting each other.
Terrific point as well. Dr. Mcgettig, I'll give you the last word on why people should get this vaccine. And if you could also throw in your thoughts about how safe it is, because I know that's probably the biggest concern that people the apprehension they have is they're not sure that it's safe, that it rolled out so quickly.
Well, regarding the safety, I've seen nothing to make me be concerned about that. And I, for one, will get the vaccine as soon as it's made available to me. And we're told that we're going to be getting it also, the study staff. So I've had my dad has actually joined a study with the Johnson & Johnson study. So all of these vaccines I feel are very safe. And my dad, believe it or not, he's older than I am. So he passed the 90 mark. So I can't wait for the world, and I'm sure that I know I don't speak just for myself, but getting kids back to school, parents not having to try to teach their kids when they're not teachers, opening up the restaurants again, the movie theaters, all of the events that we're all missing right now, the sports. It's so important to get our world back to what I think is normal. I don't want a new normal. I want the old normal.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I think we would all say we'll be first in line to get that vaccine, or certainly get our family members to get that vaccine too, because it is so very important. A lot of Facebook comments congratulating you, Dr. Mcgettig, Yvonne, also the clinic as well, for doing such a great job. I want to thank you guys all for joining me, and I really want to thank Dr. Mcgettig, Yvonne, for and Quality of Life. Gary Hirsch, who is a friend of mine that is involved at Quality of Life. It's been a real honor and a privilege, and at times it's been fun, and at other times it's been very serious and sobering. But it's been an amazing experience, an amazing journey with you all, and I thank you so much for joining me in this town hall today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.